everyone, and welcome back. Today, we're going to take a deep dive into something that's probably on a lot of people's minds. I know it's been on mine.
Oh, yeah.
Social Security.
Yes.
We've gotten a ton of articles and research from you guys, NASDAQ, NPR, Kiplinger, even some YouTubers chiming in.
Economists on YouTube.
Economists on YouTube.
Love it, yeah.
But here's the thing. Some sources are like, Social Security's going broke, and others are like, not that big of a deal.
Yeah, what's the real story?
So what is the real story?
Well, it's interesting because you would think with all of these warnings that Social Security would fail by now.
Right.
But, and here's a surprising fact, it's never missed a payment to eligible Americans. Not once. So before we get lost in all the doomsday predictions, let's break down how this whole system actually works.
Okay, yeah, let's do that. So I was doing some reading, and it seems like Social Security is funded by payroll taxes, meaning that money is taken directly from our paychecks, and our employers chip in too.
Right.
But here's my question. Does that money go into, some sort of individual account with my name on it, like a savings plan?
That's a common misconception, but no, it's not a personal savings account. Instead, the money from those payroll taxes goes directly towards paying the benefits of current retirees.
Oh, okay.
And if there's any leftover money, it gets invested in U.S. Treasury securities, which is basically like lending money to the government.
Yeah.
So it's this giant pay-as-you-go system.
So if money from current workers is paying for current retirees, where does this whole crisis thing come in?
Right.
Because we've got the 2023 Social Security Administration report, the SSA report for short, and they're saying the trust funds will be depleted by 2034.
Oh, okay.
Then there's NASDAQ, Fox Business, Kiplinger. They're throwing out 2033 as the doomsday year.
Okay.
NPR even mentions 2035.
Right.
It's like a ticking time bomb, but no one can agree on when it's going to explode.
It is a moving target, but the core issue is that the system is facing a long-term imbalance, right? More money is projected to be flowing out than coming in.
Okay, so why is that?
Yeah.
Is it mismanagement, or are there bigger things at play here?
It's actually a mix of demographic and economic trends. So people are living longer, so they're collecting benefits for more years. And we have the baby boomer generation.
Right.
They're retiring in huge numbers, which puts a lot of pressure on the system. And to make things even tougher, birth rates have declined, meaning there are fewer workers contributing payroll taxes to support those retirees.
So it's like a perfect storm brewing.
It is.
Longer lifespans, waves of retirees, and then fewer workers to kind of foot the bill.
Exactly.
But here's what I don't get. The SSA report says that even if those trust funds are depleted, 75 to 80% of benefits would still be payable.
That's right.
So it's not like everyone's retirement is suddenly going to disappear.
Exactly. It's important to separate the idea of insolvency from the complete vanishing of benefits. Even in a worst-case scenario, Social Security will likely still be around, potentially, with smaller payments. Now, a 20 or 25% cut, that would be a tough blow for many people, so I understand why people are worried. But it's not the end of the world, as some might suggest.
Okay, so let's look at the numbers for a sec. The 2023 SSA report says that the combined trust fund reserves were over $2.83 trillion.
Wow.
Yeah. And the trust fund ratio, which is a measure of the fund's assets compared to projected annual costs, was 204%. Those numbers don't exactly scream impending collapse, do they?
Those figures are definitely important and show that the system is currently strong. But the concern stems from the projected trajectory. The same report highlights that we've been running primary deficits since 2010.
Wait, hold on. Primary deficits?
Yeah.
What does that even mean?
Sure. It means that the money coming into the system from payroll taxes, excluding the interest earned on those trust fund reserves, is less than the cost of paying out benefits. In simple terms, it's like we're dipping into our savings to keep things going, and we all know that that's not sustainable in the long run.
And that brings us to the dreaded actuarial deficit, a whopping 3.61% of taxable payroll for 2023 to 2097.
Big numbers.
I'm getting a little lost in all these percentages and projections. Can you explain this, in a way that my brain can actually handle?
I hear you. It's a lot of numbers. So basically, the actuarial deficit is a way to measure the long-term gap between the money projected to come in and the money projected to go out. It considers everything we've talked about, demographics, economics, even things like interest rates. It's a single number that sums up how much we'd need to adjust things, either by increasing taxes or reducing benefits, to make Social Security sustainable for the long haul. To put it in perspective, if we wanted to close that 3.61% gap without touching benefits, payroll taxes would need to increase by about that same percentage.
Ah, okay.
Makes sense.
Now that makes more sense. Okay. But this is where it gets really interesting because we've got some very different opinions on how to actually fix this. On one side, we have economist Robert Reich arguing that we should increase taxes on the wealthy to bolster Social Security. And he lays out his whole argument in a YouTube video.
He does, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, on the other side of the coin, we have Professor Davies, who believes we should move away from Social Security for most Americans and encourage them to invest in private retirement accounts. And he also has a YouTube video where he critiques Reich's ideas.
Okay, so it's a clash of philosophies about the role of government, personal responsibility, how we support our aging population. And of course, this is all playing out against a backdrop of intense political division, which doesn't exactly make me optimistic about finding a solution anytime soon.
It's true. The political challenges are significant. We're dealing with deeply held beliefs on both sides about how this should be handled, so finding a compromise that works for everyone, or even most people, is a major hurdle.
So where does all of this leave you, the listener?
Yeah.
We've thrown a lot of information your way.
We have.
And it's easy to feel overwhelmed. But here's the key takeaway. While Social Security is definitely facing some real challenges, it's not going away anytime soon. Even the most pessimistic projections show a good chunk of those benefits will still be paid. But that doesn't mean you should just sit back and wait to see what happens, right?
Exactly. It's never too early to start thinking about your own retirement plan, and the sources you shared, especially the future of Social Security and how to prepare for it, offer some great advice. For example, delaying retirement, even by just a few years, can make a big difference in how much you receive each month.
It's like a bonus for working a little longer, but I know that's not always an option for everyone.
Absolutely. Health, job availability, family responsibilities, all of these things can factor into when someone can retire. That's why it's crucial to think about building other sources of retirement income beyond Social Security. Think of Social Security as a foundation for your retirement plan, not the entire structure. And in part 2, we'll delve into some of those other options.
Welcome back. Last time, we really dug into the inner workings of Social Security,
Yeah.
the projected funding shortfall, and the range of opinions on how to fix it.
Lots of opinions.
Lots of opinions out there.
Yeah.
But, as we were talking about all of this, it struck me that the problems Social Security is facing, they're kind of like a mini version of some of the bigger challenges that we're dealing with as a country.
Oh, interesting.
Right. We've got income inequality,
Right.
healthcare costs going through the roof,
Yeah.
and the way we work changing all the time.
Yeah.
Are those things all connected in some way?
Absolutely. They're deeply intertwined.
Okay.
Let's take income inequality, for example.
Okay.
As the gap widens between the highest earners and everyone else, it puts a strain on Social Security in a couple of ways.
Okay.
Remember Professor Davies in his YouTube video?
Yeah.
He pointed out that when more of the wealth is concentrated at the top,
Right.
it means less money is actually subject to the Social Security payroll tax because there's a cap on how much income is taxed.
So the more the rich earn, the less they contribute proportionally.
It's a point of contention, for sure.
Yeah, that doesn't seem quite fair.
Yeah, and here's the other side of that coin.
Okay.
People at the lower end of the income spectrum,
Yeah.
they rely more heavily on Social Security for their retirement income.
Right.
So any benefit cuts would hit them the hardest.
It's a double whammy.
It is
Less money coming in and more people needing those benefits.
Exactly.
And then there's the healthcare piece.
Oh.
People are living longer, which is great.
It's a good thing.
But it also means more years of potential health issues
Right.
and medical bills.
More medical bills.
How does that impact Social Security?
That's a huge factor.
Yeah.
Rising healthcare costs are a burden both for retirees who may have to spend a big chunk of their fixed income on medical expenses and for government programs like Medicare, which provides health insurance for seniors. And if you think Social Security's finances are a bit shaky, the 2024 Medicare Trustees Report painted an even grimmer picture for their long-term funding.
Oh, boy. Okay.
Yeah.
So we've got these two giant programs,
Huge.
Social Security and Medicare,
Yeah.
both essential for older Americans
Right.
and both facing like a serious financial crunch.
They are.
It's a A recipe for disaster if we don't figure out some
You
solutions.
got to figure something out.
And on top of all of that,
Right.
we have, the whole nature of work changing,
Oh,
the
yeah.
gig economy, automation taking over some jobs,
Right.
traditional pensions going away.
Fewer and fewer.
How are these trends impacting Social Security?
They're creating a much more unpredictable and less secure work landscape for many.
Okay.
Fewer people have stable full-time jobs with benefits,
Uh-huh.
which means fewer people consistently paying into the Social Security system.
Right.
And the rise of self-employment and contract work adds another layer of complexity.
Oh, how so?
Because those workers are responsible for paying both the employer and employee portions of the payroll tax.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So it's like the safety net is getting smaller
Yeah.
while more people are falling through the cracks. It
Yeah.
sounds like just tweaking a few numbers
Yeah.
or raising the retirement age won't cut it.
It's more complex than that.
We're talking about addressing like some fundamental shifts in our economy and the way we live.
Absolutely.
So given all this complexity, what are some potential solutions that could help address the Social Security crisis while also tackling these bigger issues?
There are a few ideas floating around, and they range from incremental changes to more radical overhauls.
Okay.
On the incremental side, some folks propose raising the cap on income subject to the Social Security payroll tax.
Okay.
This is basically Robert Reich's argument.
Right.
Make the higher earners contribute more.
Seems pretty straightforward.
It does.
But wouldn't that be politically unpopular?
You bet. The argument against it is that raising taxes on anyone, even the wealthy, might slow down economic growth.
Makes sense.
Another common suggestion is to gradually raise the retirement age,
Okay.
since people are living longer and healthier lives these days.
That one comes up a lot.
It does.
But wouldn't it be unfair to people who work physically demanding jobs?
That's a valid point,
Yeah.
and it's a big part of the debate.
Okay.
Now, on the more radical side, you have proposals like the one Professor Davies advocates for moving away from the pay-as-you-go system altogether
Yeah.
and transitioning to personal retirement accounts.
Wouldn't that be risky?
It could be.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it put a lot more responsibility on individuals to manage their own retirement savings?
Right. And what about market crashes and things like that?
Those are definitely risks to consider.
Yeah.
Supporters of this idea say it could lead to higher returns for individuals in the long run,
Okay.
but it would require a huge shift in how we think about and prepare for retirement.
That's a big gamble.
It is, no doubt about it.
It seems like every solution comes with its own set of trade-offs and potential downsides.
It's true.
I guess that's what happens when you're dealing with a complex issue like this.
Exactly. There's no magic bullet.
Right.
Finding a path forward for Social Security is going to require a combination of approaches. And those approaches have to be carefully designed to address both the immediate financial challenges
Right.
and the larger economic forces that are reshaping our society.
So we've covered a lot of ground.
We have.
And it's clear the future of Social Security is full of uncertainty.
Yeah.
But instead of being paralyzed by that uncertainty, maybe we can use it as a springboard for new ideas and innovation.
I like that perspective.
Yeah.
By understanding how Social Security is connected to these broader economic forces, we can start to imagine solutions that not only ensure the program survives, but also create a more equitable and prosperous society for everyone. And in part 3, we're going to bring this all home and talk about what you, the listener, can do to take control of your own financial future.
All right, welcome back for the final part of our deep dive into Social Security. We've covered a lot of ground, from how the system works to the challenges it's up against and how it's all tangled up with some pretty big economic forces.
And now it's time to make this personal
Yes.
and talk about what you, the listener, can do to navigate all this uncertainty and build a solid financial future for yourself.
One thing that really jumped out at me from all this research is that even with all this talk of a crisis, Social Security is probably going to remain a big part of retirement income for most Americans.
Absolutely. It might not be the exact amount you'd expect based on what things look like now, but like we said, even in those worst-case scenarios, it's not going to disappear completely. So instead of stressing out, let's focus on what's in your control.
Exactly. And that brings us to a key point from the future of Social Security and how to prepare for it. Think of Social Security as just one piece of your retirement plan, not the whole picture.
Right. It's about taking a proactive and multifaceted approach.
Yeah.
You don't want to put all your eggs in one basket.
Yeah. So where do we even start?
Well, remember that surprising fact from the Cardinal Advisors YouTube video. The Social Security Trust Fund actually grew in 2020.
Oh, yeah.
in the middle of all the doom and gloom.
Yeah, it seems almost impossible.
They pointed out that it happened partly because of policy changes that gradually increased the full retirement age. So by pushing back when people can start collecting benefits, it takes some of the pressure off the system.
And this is where your own choices can make a real difference. That same video, along with the future of Social Security and how to prepare for it, emphasized that putting off your own retirement, even if it's just by a couple of years, can have a big impact on how much money you get each month. It's like a built-in reward for working a bit longer. And it makes sense. More years of paying in, fewer years of taking money out. But I realize that's not an option for everyone.
Of course, health problems, job situations, family responsibilities, all sorts of things can influence when someone is able to retire, and that's why it's so important to create other sources of income for retirement that aren't tied to Social Security.
You're talking about things like savings and investments.
Exactly, and this is where some of those different viewpoints we discussed come into play. Professor Davies, in that YouTube debate with Robert Reich, argued that private retirement accounts invested in the stock market could potentially generate much higher returns than Social Security ever could.
But like we talked about, that comes with risks too. What if the market tanks right before you retire?
That's why diversifying your investments is key. And this is a great time to bring up the importance of talking to a financial advisor. They can help you figure out how much risk you're comfortable with, create a personalized investment strategy, and make adjustments as you get closer to retirement.
So it's like having a financial co-pilot to help you navigate through all the ups and downs. But there's more to it than just investing, right? There are other things people can do to strengthen their financial situation.
Absolutely. Getting your debt under control, building up an emergency fund, maybe downsizing your living expenses, all these things can free up money to save and invest. And it gives you peace of mind no matter what happens with Social Security.
It's about taking charge, making your own plan, and not letting fear control your decisions. This reminds me of something that really resonated with me from that AARP article, How Much Longer Will Social Security Last?
Oh yeah, they really stressed that focusing on what you can control is essential. They reminded readers that even with the projected shortfalls, Social Security isn't going anywhere.
Right, and even if benefits are reduced, it's still likely to be a lifeline for millions of Americans. So while it's smart to plan for different possibilities, let's not forget the bigger picture. Social Security has been a remarkably resilient program for almost a century. It's weathered economic storms and political battles, and it's still standing.
It's a testament to how powerful collective action and social insurance can be. And while its future might feel uncertain, our own individual actions and choices can shape not only our own financial well-being, but also the larger conversation about how we support one another as a society.
That's a fantastic point. And that's a wrap for our deep dive into Social Security. We hope you're leaving with a better understanding of the issues, the options, and the opportunities ahead. Remember, knowledge is power, so keep learning, keep planning, and keep diving deeper. So keep learning, keep planning, and keep diving deeper.